Hi everyone, parents and carers. Welcome to our first video on supporting your child with addition at home. I'm going to go through the Maths National Curriculum and break up the following objectives to do with addition and subtractions across the following videos to show you how we use these statements to help our children in school. So children should be taught to read, write and interpret mathematical statements involving addition and subtraction and equal sign. Represent and use number bonds and related subtraction facts within 20. Add and subtract 1-digit and 2-digit numbers to 20 including 0. And finally solve one-step problems that solve addition and subtraction using concrete objects and pictorial representation and missing number problems such as 7 equals missing number subtract 9. So this video and the following video will be focused on these statements' objectives and how we approach and work with your children to make sure they are solid in this area of learning. In maths, we use the CPA approach, and we believe that all children, when introduced a new concept, should have the opportunity to build competency by taking this approach. So C stands for concrete. So when we teach the new concept, we often like to use object, counters, for example, cubes. We'll also like to use the natural objects such as pine cones or conkers, etc., to move around and manipulate in the hands. Then we move on to the pictures, so the children see the visual pictures of the objects. So for example, if the children use the addition, they might, for example, draw their own pictures to help them to solve the problem. After the children are secure and solid in the pictorial learning, we will be looking at abstract learning, so using number line, number sentences, involving mental strategies in the calculation. So starting off, like you can see, there are some cubes. Children are used the cubes to move them to create a number sentence practically. So for example, there are 4. For example, here there are 3 cubes, blue cubes, and there are 2 green cubes. So this is what we mean when we say concrete objects. Children can touch the objects and they visually can see there are 3 blue cubes and also there are 2 green cubes. And they can see, they can count them all together, which is 5. This approach is very useful for the children to visualize and manipulate with objects before we move on to the next level. Then we move on to the picture representations. So for example, like you can see here, when the children are confident, concrete method, then we look at the pictures and adding pictures with the objects. So you can see the children have the pictures in the book, and then with work on counting, so they will still have the pictures to help them to count. So for example, here there are 3 apples in the basket, and there are 2 green apples in the basket. How many there are all together? So we start with the pictures. We've got the pictures here. And then we use the counters to also help us to see visually. And then we'll move on to the abstract, which is our number sentence. We might say 3 add 2 equals 5. Now let's have a look at the next slide. Addition within 10 is a very important topic in Year 1. If the children have a firm grasp on this concept, they will have a strong foundation to build upon in later on through the year. So let's look at the concrete strategy using cubes. We'll be using lots of different objects. For example, in this slide you can see the cubes. You also might use at home some Lego, some maybe piece of the pasta, maybe some beads as well. We look at the cubes, we move them around. We might see that there are some red cubes, there are also some blue cubes, and we might say, oh, I can see there are 6 cubes blue, and there are also 4 cubes red, so 6 and 4 makes all together 10. So we look this one. Then when we secure using the objects, we also can use another strategy called 10 frame. You can see there it's 10 frame, and inside the 10 frame there are some blue counters and yellow counters. And you can see there are 7 blue counters. How do I know? Because I can count every single one, and I can see 3 extra to fill my 10 frame. So I can also use my numbers to represent my number sentence. So I know there are 7 blue counters. When I add 3 more, my answer will be 10 altogether, because this is my 10 frame. Also, I can swap numbers around. I can start with the smallest number. I might say 3 plus 7 blue counters. Also, my answer is 10. Then we also be using the special method called part-whole model. In our learning, we will be using first concrete method. We will be moving the cubes around, for example, and then when we secure with our concrete method, so we got one group of red cubes here, and we've got another group of green cubes, and we can put them in the different parts. So for example, I've got here in my first part is 4 red, and I also can put extra green on another part. So here's 4, and I've got here 6. When I add this all together, I can move them with my objects if I need. So I know when I put them all together there's 10, because I can count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10. And also I can write my number sentence. I can say there were 4 red cubes and there's 6. So I know 6 and 4 makes 10. I can also swap numbers around. I can start with the biggest number, largest number, which is 6, and add 4 equals 10. There are also different ways to make a number. In our school, we use, for example, different strategies using the part model, such as, for example, hula hoops and the bean bags, pipe cleaners and the beads. We might also use some wooden blocks disc with number and the buttons, or small counters. At home you also can use piece of the pasta or Lego, or maybe some different small toys as well. So it's very useful to practice number bonds to 10 using different strategies at home as well. Then when we're very secure in a 10 frame and the part per home model, we also might use our fingers to help us with the number bonds to 10, because we know we've got 10 fingers. And again, let's have a look at this picture here. There are lots of different ways we can make a number bond to 10. The children use their own fingers and try to work out different answers. We might also use the pegs to help us to move some numbers, some pegs on one side, some pegs on another side to make number bond to 10. And also sometimes we also use natural object. We can use the leaves, for example, sticks or stones to help us with the number bonds to 10. And like you can see in this example here, we have been using the leaves and we have been counting and writing our number bonds within 10 using different numbers. So there are, for example, 6 leaves on one tree, add 4 more leaves on another tree, makes 10 altogether. Then we'll be moving on to addition using number line. It's very important to make sure that the children count on using the number line. So we will be using a number line to moving away from objects, pictures, and looking more at numbers. So let's have a look at some examples of how we calculate using the number line in year 1. So in the first question is 2 add 3. So I will start on number 2, which is here, and then I'm going to count on 3 jumps until I will land on my answer. 1, 2, 3. So I landed on number 5. So 2 add 3 equals 5. Let's look at the next example. 7 add 1. So I'm looking for number 7 on my number line, and I'm going to count on, or we also can say jump on, only 1, because I'm only adding 1. So 7 add 1, my answer is 8. I landed on number 8. It's very important to make sure that the children count on or jump on, and when they start the counting, otherwise they end up with the wrong answer. Let's have a look at the next example. Here's 1 add 4. We might start count on from 4 because 4 is my biggest number, and that will save us counting and jumping on number line. So I start with the biggest number 4, and I'm going to only count 1 more. It's 4 plus 1 makes 5. And the next one, 6 plus 2, I start with number 6, my number line, and I'll count on, jump on, 2 jumps, 1, 2, and I landed on number 8. So 6 add 2, my answer is number 8. Let's look at the next slide. Then we're going to use mental strategies. When taking away our learning to the next level, it's called mental strategies. We might use our fingers, so we can come away using objects, pictures to help us with our calculations. So we'll be using our fingers and complete simple addition. So for example, on the first picture here, you can see 10 fingers all together. On my one hand, I've got 5. Another hand also is 5 fingers, so 5 and 5 makes 10. And I've got here also 3 fingers on my one hand here, and I'm going to add 5 on my another hand. So 3 plus 5 equals 8. So using our fingers is a very useful way of learning that I can work things out for myself. And I don't need any objects or pictures anymore. So then we will move on to working out more mentally by keeping largest number in our heads, because I don't, for example, have 18 fingers. My number will be 18, and as we know, we don't have 18 fingers. So I can keep my 18 number in my head, and then I can add 3 fingers out. And I'm going to pinch my fingers. So I'm going to say 18 plus 3, keep my number 18 in my head, and then pinch my fingers saying 18, 19, 20, 21. So my answer is 21. So let's have a look again. My number is 15. I'm going to keep my number 15 in my head. 15 is larger than 10. I don't have 15 fingers, so I will keep my 15 in my head and count on 4 more by pinching my fingers. So I might say 15 in my head, add 4, 16, 17, 18, 19. So 15 plus 4, the answer is 19. Then we will look at the using word problems within addition. Will be highlight important information. So Ola has 5 sweets. That's my very important information. And Tom has 2 cakes. How many are all together? All together. So that definitely I will be adding, because I need to find the total. So I have highlighted number 5 and 2, and I have highlighted the key word altogether, because that shows me that we will be adding. So I can write my number sentence. 5 add 2. I can work out mentally using my fingers, or I can use my objects to help me to count, or also if I'm comfortable I can use my number line. So let's say, for example, I can use my pictures. I've got 5 sweets for sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm adding 2 more. 5, 6, 7. So my answer is 7. Or I can check my answer using my number line. So 5 sweets, and I'm counting on, counting forward. So I'm going to add 2 more. 1, 2, and I landed on number 7. Definitely my answer is 7.